Hello and welcome to the program. I'm your host, Ron Whitlock. On the banks of the Rio Grande River overlooking Mexico, we interviewed Senator Dan Patrick, Republican of Houston. Patrick wants to be your next lieutenant governor. Here's what he had to tell us. Senator Patrick, welcome to the telecast.
It's good to see you again.
2007, first time. You said you've been down on 3 legislative tours.
I have been.
Run by the Rio Grande Valley Partnership. And the first time you came down as a freshman, you gave me the time in the custody of Palmas.
And I've been down, I came down as education chair, met with superintendents. So I've been down to the valley many times. I love it. People are great. And it's fascinating when you know, people who have never been here, they have this vision of the river and Mexico. You know, when I was younger, I might be able to throw a baseball across there, but I might not get past the deck here tonight. But
well, in 07, we went all the way to Roma and could see it over there.
Yeah, I remember it well.
And it was really, we thought it was insecure then, and it's worse now.
Worse.
In a serious way. We'll talk about the refugees or illegal immigrants that are coming across. We'll talk about that at the end of the interview. We want to get in some hard issues that are going to be, if you are elected to be the lieutenant governor in the state of Texas. Even Republicans in the region, Corpus Christi, is predominantly Republican in a lot of ways, had 4 Republican reps elected at one particular time and swept all the D's out. Even some of the Republicans in southern Texas and in Oasis County, Corpus Christi, concerned that you, if elected lieutenant governor, will do away with the 2/3 rule of the Texas Senate and go to a majority vote rather than 2/3 rule. Do you have any intention of doing that?
Well, first of all, the rules are decided on by the senators. As lieutenant governor, I cannot unilaterally change the rules. So the Senate, they have 31 senators. It takes a simple majority to change the rules, 16. What I've always called for and fought for was to change the 21 vote rule to 19. Right now it's 2/3 to pass any bill or to bring a bill to the floor, and 19 would be 60%, which would tie in with the United States cloture vote in the U.S. Senate. I think the 2/3 rule is too high of a threshold. Our founding fathers, when they thought about how our government will work, our founding fathers said if we require 2/3 of Congress or 2/3 of Senate to bring any bill to the floor, it will lead to tyranny of the minority. So the losing party would be able to control everything. And so with 19 votes, it's still fair. You still have to get 19 senators to allow your bill to come to the floor, but it's up to the senators. We'll get our legislation passed regardless of...
You would like to do that, but it looks like it's not very feasible. Based on that instruction now on how the people vote in November.
Well, no, I think it's very possible. You only need 16 votes to change the rules, and there are 20 Republicans.
Oh, okay.
So 16 out of 20 can change it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Would you intend to keep Chairman Nelson as finance chair and Dr. Schwertner as health and human services chair?
Well, now you should know it would be against the law, and I could be in the Hooskow if I even said that. What I said is that I thought Jane Nelson was as interim finance. An interim finance selection, and that I, as a member of finance, not as a candidate last session, we haven't had a finance chair for since last fall. We haven't had a meeting for a year, and so last year we have a lot of work to do. I said she would be someone that I think would be and senior ranking member, but I've not said anything about who would be in any committee because it would not be legal to do.
The question I'd have is, how do you feel about the campaign? Do you anticipate winning, and if so, why?
Well, the last poll we saw, we were I think 17 or 18 points ahead. As you know, we did very well in the runoff, surprised a lot of people, getting 2/3 of the vote in the runoff and getting almost 50% in the first round. But I always ran like I was 15 and 20 points behind. I'm running like I'm 15 or 20 points behind. My opponent, I respect her. She's very nice.
A neighbor on the Senate floor.
Yeah, we sit next to each other, behind each other for the last 6 years. Yeah. We've been on education together. She's just wrong on the issues. I'm pro-life, she's pro-choice. I'm for school choice, she wants to protect the teachers' unions. I'm for lower taxes, she wants more. I'm for getting rid of Obamacare, she wants to expand it. I can go down the list. Just wrong on the issues, but she's a nice person.
Representative Ryan Guillen told the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce here yesterday that not taking money from the feds was the biggest blunder in the history of Texas. What do you think?
I'd have to have the full context of what he was talking about. No, it was the right decision.
Okay. Will Texas be put first, or your conservative goals and be primary when you get to be the CEO of the Texas Senate, if in fact you're elected?
Well, you always, first of all, when you're elected, you represent every Texan. Just like as a senator, I represent West Houston, and it's about a 70% Republican district, but I represent everyone, and our constituents call us whether we don't ask are you Democrat or Republican, we ask what your problem is. But look, this is clearly a Republican state. It's clearly the most conservative state, I believe, in the country. It's going to be the most conservative Senate in the history of the state of Texas, and we're going to lead as conservatives. That's what people didn't elect us, by the way. Elections have consequences, and people didn't elect us, as we're finding out from Obama in Washington. People didn't elect us as conservatives to come in and then legislate as moderates or as Democrats. So we'll lead, but most of the conservative issues that I stand for and my party stands for, your constituents, so they may vote Democrat, not your constituents, your viewers, they may vote Democrat
They are my constituents.
Yeah, because they don't know what we stand for. Again, there are so many pro-life Hispanics. Do they want to vote for my opponent or Democrats who will take the life of a 5-month-old baby in the womb? I don't think so. Do they want parental choice to send their kids to a better school if their kids are zip coded into a failing school? I think they want that choice, and we want to give them that choice. Do they want lower property taxes? I think they want lower property taxes. So on those issues, I think we're lined up with many people who voted Democrat for a long time. They just haven't really focused on the difference between the parties. And the reason I come to the Valley a lot and will continue is the Valley's important. I know it's mostly Democrat. We don't expect to turn it around overnight, but we want people in the Valley, we want Hispanic voters to know we care about them and we stand with them on faith and family and life and school choice and economic opportunity. That's who we are.
Senator, the fact that you've come on every legislative tour since elected indicates.
I think I missed one. I think I missed one. I don't want to fib. I think I've made 3 of the 4.
I would like to get to one on your attitude on immigration reform, but I want to get this one in. Your opponent, Senator Vanderpute, has accepted our invitation to participate in a debate here on the border region, maybe in Corpus Christi. We're not sure exactly where. Would you agree to also participate in that debate?
I don't handle our scheduling.
Okay.
I think there are going to be 2 debates between the governor candidates, and then we'll decide on what we're going to do on the lieutenant governor's race. But the campaigns get together and work that out.
Your answer, you've gone and toured the facilities today, the immigration facilities here. What do you think is the solution to this problem? Are these illegal aliens or are these refugees? Which are they?
Well, they're illegal aliens, and look, as a Christian, as a believer, I support a school in Honduras. I've raised millions of dollars for all children with disabilities in Houston City Public Schools, which are primarily minorities. So I've raised millions of dollars for Hispanic children in the last 20 years. My heart goes out to them, but my heart also goes out to American children. And we do have a responsibility. The Bible says, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. And some people think that's only taxes, but it's also the laws. You have to protect this river and this border. A nation without borders is no longer a nation, as Ronald Reagan said, and we lose our liberty. So I want to put Texas children first. I want to put American children first and American families first. Secure the border, and not until we do that and will Washington finally pass legal immigration, which I support, legal immigration report, and our party supports, so that people can come here in dignity. No child should have to swim this river and drown. And when you have a president who doesn't even want to come down here and see what's happening and stop that, then he's not focused. We're focused, we're going to secure the border, and I believe all Texans want law and order, and then we have to have legal immigration so people can go back and forth, the economy can prosper, but we have to be in control of who comes to America, not the drug cartels. The drug cartels right over there, probably watching us now somewhere, they're in control of our border right now. Notwithstanding the fine work of Border Patrol agents and DPS and our local law enforcement, who are doing the best they can in a very difficult situation.
We'll be back in a moment after this message. At the Riverside Club near Ansel Lewis Park on the banks of the Rio Grande River south of Mission, Lieutenant Governor candidate Senator Dan Patrick of Houston, a Republican, addressed the Hidalgo County Tea Party.
Thank you for coming. My name is Dan Patrick, and I love being here, and this is since I was elected, probably my fourth trip, fifth trip. I came down as a freshman in 2007. For those of you who don't know, I was elected in 2007. And I came down here on the Valley Tour. And I will tell you, it's always been very smart of the Chamber to do that tour. And then I came back again, I think 2 more times. You're the only part of the state that does that, by the way. The Chamber puts that together and brings all legislators who want to come down on the bus for 2 nights and 3 days, I think is the tour, to go all over the area, to look at industry, everything about this area. And so it gives every new legislator, freshman legislator, a look at the Valley, and McAllen is our home base for it. And then people like it so much and we're treated so well just by the hospitality of everyone that we come back. And so even after you're a freshman, you come back. You're the only part of the region of the state that does that, by the way. We don't go anywhere else on a bus. We don't go to anywhere else in Texas. It's just down to the Valley. So you have a very good team of people that represent the Valley. I like to, again, just a little bit of background for those of you who don't know me. My background is in radio and television. I was a television anchor for a number of years and went into radio, talk radio, conservative talk radio about 20 years ago. And that's what I do for a living. I have a little radio station in Houston and one in Dallas because we make, as you know, $600 a month as a senator, so you have to have a living. And so I was the guy that brought Rush Limbaugh to Houston back in 1988. No one knew Rush Limbaugh in 1988. No one had ever heard of him. And he called our radio station, and we were the smallest station with the smallest audience in the city. There were 40 stations. We were 40th. And no one would put him on the air because no one wanted to talk about conservative politics in those days. And I said, what the heck? Plus, I loved what he had to say, and we put him on the air, and we became the #1 station from 40 to 1 in like a very short time while he was on and built around that. And so it was a great opportunity for us. And in 2006, our senator retired, and I had an opportunity to run. And I got in the race. There were 3 other people in the race, a city councilman and 2 House chairmen in the Texas House. And everyone said, Dan can't win. He's the radio guy. And we got 70% of the vote in a 4-way race. And they said, well, of course Dan won. He was the radio guy. And there's no question of being on television for years in Houston and then being on the radio for a long time. I had the name ID, but I will be very candid with you. When I went around, and my district is West Harris County, for those of you, West Houston. For those of you who are familiar with that, very conservative, and they knew me and they listened to me or they had watched me, but when I walked in the room, it was a little bit like tonight. They had never met me personally for the most part. And so they were saying, okay, Dan, we kind of like what you have to say on the air, but why should we vote for you? At the end of the day, we won the election not because of me personally, although we worked very hard and we had a very good message. It was about the issues. As a conservative, as a Christian conservative, I believe wholeheartedly that if we stand for the Word of God and we stand for the principles of Reagan, that's our message, and that message never gets out of date. It never grows old. We know from a biblical standpoint the Word of God is the same yesterday, today, and will always be the same, and conservative principles are the same. And so that's how we won. And in the Senate since 2007, I've been ranked as the most conservative member of the Senate after 16,000 votes, so I'm very proud of that. Sometimes, you all know, some people run for office and they campaign one way and then they get in office and they kind of start shifting a little bit. And I've always believed, every time I step up on the Senate floor, what would, if you were my constituents, and hopefully you will all be, if we win the lieutenant governor's race, what would you want me to say on your behalf? Because it's your voice that we're taking there, not just my views, but it's your voice. And so that's what I've always done. And quick highlights of legislation, because as a Christian, I worked with crisis pregnancy centers for years, and saw the amazing things they did for crisis pregnancies for women. And so I thought, what if we took that and made Planned Parenthood kind of follow that model of giving a sonogram to everyone seeking an abortion? It took 3 sessions to pass that bill, but we passed it, and we think it will save 15,000 lives a year. We have 80,000 abortions a year in Texas, so I'm really proud of that. The first bill I passed was Putting God We Trust in the Senate, under God in our state pledge. I've been a fiscal hawk in the Texas Senate. I've been on finance the last couple of years and very protective of our money, but I believe in smart government And what does the smart government mean? Here's the difference. We have borrowed billions of dollars for transportation. It's going to cost us a significant amount more in interest to pay for that money. It would have been better to pay as you go as much as we can, and we would have saved billions of dollars in interest. That's what I call by smart government. Sometimes you have to make the right decisions, even if they're the tough decisions at that point. This past session, I was chair of education, on higher education, on finance, criminal justice, transportation, redistricting, and sunset. I probably had the busiest schedule of any senator. I've missed 6 or 8 votes out of 16,000. I've missed 1 day out of 650. My family, I have 2 children. My son is a criminal court judge. We're very proud of him. He was an assistant prosecutor. And my daughter's a registered nurse. To tell you how conservative she is, and I'm not making this story up, they both went to Baylor, and she came home. She had dated this. She was a late bloomer. She didn't start dating until she was a senior. She was an athlete, a great athlete, and so this young man went to Baylor with her, and they'd been dating for about 3 years, I guess, from high school to college. I assume, you know, as a dad, you start checking these guys out after they've dated your daughter for a while, and you say, is this a future son-in-law? So I figured he might be. And Shane, my daughter's name is Shane, she came home one day and she told my wife that she had broken up with Mark after all these years. And so my wife told me, and I thought, that's really odd. Something happened. And again, as a dad, you know, well, what's going on here? Because I'd just seen them not long ago, and they seemed to be happy. And so she said, go ask your daughter why she broke up with Mark. So I went and asked her, and I said, Shane, what happened? She said, and this was back in 2008, she said, because he told me today he's voting for Barack Obama. That is a true story. And I said, Shane, that can't be true. She said, no. She said, Dad, if he is that dumb, 2 things. I don't want him to cancel out my vote for the rest of my life, and I don't want to marry anyone who's that clueless this young. And so family's pretty conservative. Real quick, let me hit on a couple of issues for you. I'm running for lieutenant governor on a number of issues. I felt like it was time for new energy, new vision, change. Do you realize that this is a history-making election, and it has been a primary. No state in the history of any state has replaced their entire ticket in 1 day of voting. On the primary, we have a new candidate for governor, a new candidate for lieutenant governor, a new candidate for controller, a new candidate for attorney general, a new candidate for ag commissioner, a new candidate for land commissioner, and a new candidate for railroad commissioner. It is the ultimate reset button. And various people are running for various reasons, but and I think Rick Perry's done a terrific job. But we've had the same leadership for a long time, and people just kind of made the decision it's time for new folks. And I think that's good. I'm a term limits guy, so I think after about 8 years, that's enough. And if you can't get it done in 8 years, then you're not going to get it done in 8 more. And if you've done a good job in 8 years, time to turn the baton over to someone else. And so I ran for the Senate on a couple of key issues. One is education. We have a 40 to 50% dropout rate in our inner city schools that are 96% brown and black in Texas. Statewide, the dropout rate is very high, but in our inner cities, where our biggest schools are, where most of our kids go, we have 5 million kids in Texas who go to traditional public schools. We have no future in Texas. If half of the next majority, which will be Hispanic in Texas, if they don't have a high school degree. Today, you need 80% of all jobs require some type of training or education, not necessarily a 4-year degree. I've always kind of said not every kid needs a BS degree in BS and $100,000 in debt who's not qualified for a job. And that's what we have. And so education is a key to me. You can't live the American dream if you don't have an education. One of the ways as Republicans that we will reach out to Hispanic Democrats and African American Democrats is through what I call parental choice on education. I'm pro-life, not pro-choice in the birth of the child, but I am totally for choice in where you send your child to school. We have about 8,500 campuses, K through 12 in Texas. That's all schools combined. Almost 10% we rate as failures in Texas. We say they're a failure. And who in this room would want to be forced to send their child or grandchild to a school that Texas says is a failure? So we need more charters, we need more parental choice, and we need to turn education around to give every child an opportunity. 2, property taxes. All across the state, and I've been fighting this for years, I've not been able to get my bills out of finance, and I've passed over 100 bills, probably authored, co-authored, sponsored, co-sponsored, but I've never been able to move this. You should not live in a state where even after you pay off your home, you can't afford to live in it because of the high rent you pay through property taxes. And so that is a big issue that is statewide. We have to disconnect the value to your tax rate. Right now, you know, if your value goes up 8%, your taxes go up 8%, even if your income only goes up 2%. And that means if your value goes up and your tax is 8% a year, every 9 years your taxes double. So that's a priority for me. The third issue is illegal immigration. And you know, it's interesting. During the campaign, thank you. During the campaign, I really built my whole campaign around 4 issues. I'll get to the 4th one in a second. And this was a centerpiece. And I was criticized for saying that the border was not secure. I was criticized because I talked about health risk. And it turns out that everything I said in the Julian Castro debate, and everything I said on the campaign trail has turned out to be true. Let me give you some startling numbers. And now the whole country is seeing this issue. You know it. You're right here. I mean, you're right here. You know it. From 2008 to 2012, 4 years. I'm not talking about people coming here for a job, for the American dream, and they still shouldn't come here illegally, but I'm not talking about the people who are hardworking coming here to help their family. I'm talking about criminals. We arrested 143,000 people that we identified as being here illegally who were hardened criminals. We charged them with 447,000 crimes, including over 5,000 murders, 5,000 rapes, and 2,000 murders. My number one job is to protect your life, your family, and your property. That's what every elected official, number one priority. And so it's not about, we're not, as Republicans, we are not anti-immigrant. We're a nation of immigrants. We're not anti-Hispanic. We're not anti-anyone. We're just for law and order, and not until we secure, we secure the border will Washington act. I blame the crisis on the border today and what we've had for 20 years, ever since Reagan's amnesty, and I'm a big Reagan supporter, but that wasn't the right play at the right time. At least they didn't follow up. Every year, neither the Republicans or the Democrats in Washington have done anything about it. And I believe because many Republicans are forced to not do anything about it in Washington because Republicans, some want cheap labor, which brings down the wages for hardworking Americans. And I believe Democrats want future voters. So as long as thousands of people cross that river, both parties get what they want. And they'll never pass legal immigration reform. Once we secure the border, and instead of catching 1 out of 5 or 6, we catch 4 out of 5 or 6, not until then, in my heart, do I believe Washington will act. Secondly, we should not have a nation that has a policy that you have to come to America in the back of an 18-wheeler, or that you have to swim across the river and drown, or that you have to be abused because you're a woman or a young girl as part of the bounty to cross the river. What kind of nation are we? That's not Christian policy. Do we think that we're helping the people come to America that way? And then they get here, and what do they have? They have a life of living in the shadows. They don't ever feel that self-esteem of being an American. And maybe that's why the assimilation doesn't occur like it has in past legal immigration periods. So we can secure the border with the right funding, the right focus, and that's going to be a top priority. I'll give you an amazing statistic. You may have heard, we're catching so many 100 a day, 1,000. We're averaging over the last year, most weeks we apprehend 6,000 to 8,000 to 10,000 people crossing the border. If you get 1 out of every 5, that means somewhere in the neighborhood of 40,000 are crossing that we don't catch. Well, just the number that we catch, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 a week, is more people than are born in Texas every week. So we have about 380,000 children born in Texas a year. And if you do the math as I just gave you, we're apprehending more than that. But those that we're not apprehending, so for about every child that's born in Texas, 3 or 4 are coming here illegally, or adults. That cannot exist. So, pro-immigration reform, guest worker program once we secure the border. We have to keep our economy strong. We have to have a policy where people can go back and forth. If people could go back and forth like they used to many decades ago, they wouldn't be coming here and bringing their whole family here. They don't go back because they're afraid they can't get back, or they got to pay the drug cartels a second time. And so those 3 issues, in any order, they're all priority: property taxes, immigration reform, and illegal immigration reform, and law and order.
We'll be back in a moment on the banks of the Rio Grande River, south of Mission, Texas. We thank State Senator Dan Patrick of Houston, a Republican on the ballot to be the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Texas. We thank him and his campaign for the time that they gave us here today on the banks of the Rio Grande River, south of Mission, Texas. Till the next time on this program, adios.